Hi, this is Henk. Welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions. And today my guest is, I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce the name right, Douglas Weissman.
Actually, you nailed it. Most people don't. You nailed
Holy
it.
shit.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you got going on, man?
Right now, I'm pitching Girl in the Ashes. So it's serial killer, World War II, German occupation in Paris, and how the main character, Odette, actually navigates trying to find her next victim within the chaos.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So it's a female serial killer?
Female serial killer, right? So she's using kind of her female wiles to lure men, only men, and to see how she can kind of get her aggression out.
Does she have some grudge that she like built up, like she hates men? Like, I don't know if you saw the movie Monster. It's like
That's a
it's
good
like
one.
an
Yeah.
ex-prostitute that's been abused by men, so it kind of makes sense that she would have it out for men.
Yeah, I mean, in a similar way. So she wasn't specifically abused, but she watched her mother get abused and then
Okay.
murdered, like in a crime of passion in a way. And so ever since then, she's had this, yeah, angst and rage and been trying to kind of settle it by killing men that she finds deserving. So they always have something that they're doing in the background that they're hiding from society.
Right, right. It's almost like a Dexter vibe. I mean, with the World War
Yeah.
II serial killer. But
No, you nailed it. Yeah, that was a big thing. My wife was the one who was like, "Oh, we got really into Dexter. I'd never seen it. My wife loves Dexter, so she's like, "Oh, we got to see it together. We got to watch it." So we were watching it, and then she just pitched it to me this one day. We're just randomly. She's like, "Oh, imagine if Dexter was a woman, but in World War II." And I'm like, "Oh, there it goes. Let's do this."
yeah, no, that's a cool twist. Dexter was awesome for like 4 seasons and then
Yeah.
dropped off. But I mean, a lot of shows like that. The Walking Dead was like that.
Yeah.
It's like you need to have an end game. And you know when to quit.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like why Breaking Bad was so amazing was the fact that it had this point that it was working towards, and it
Oh yeah, it
never.
was a story the whole way through.
Yeah,
And speaking of which, I think that's what makes anything strong. Good stories. Like
yeah,
sometimes, especially like whenever something's hyped up and it never lives up to it, it especially seems common in modern, modern cinema, modern books, modern everything. Any sort of fiction is like, let's just put all the gotcha out there. It's like in the beginning of the story, like the story makes it strong. And
yeah.
I've heard a lot. I hate to sound like the bitter old man, but I've heard a lot where, like, like back in my day. But I remember when novels had this like build up. So they would everything is horribly wrong. And you're like, oh fuck, Then you're invested. And
Yeah.
now they just like splash bang. Sort of. It's like I don't care. I don't give a fuck if this person dies. I met them like 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, dude, you nailed it. I mean, that's the thing. I'm gonna connect two completely different movies here, just based on what you're talking about. One, when I was growing up, A Brave Little Toaster. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
No.
Well, it's about a fucking toaster, and yet I was so invested in this movie and whether or not the toaster and his friends, which is like a blanket and a vacuum and something else, are going to like make it to their children to right. I don't know to have a fulfilling life. I'm like, it's a toaster, and I was still like because it's story and it's character, right? I
Right.
care so much about them. And then John Wick, right? Why do I
Awesome,
care about
awesome movie.
John Wick?
Yeah.
I love John Wick, but why do I care about John Wick? Because the first 5 minutes of the movie, you become invested in why he's so emotionally distraught. So when he
Right.
starts killing the entire Russian mafia in New York, you are behind him because you understand his emotional drive. So it's not just the story of him like just breaking down.
You see him bond with that dog, and the dog who is given to him by his late wife is like,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, the buildup makes like the denouement even better.
This is exactly it, where it's like, I am totally behind this one guy killing 150 people because of this dog.
Right,
100% because it's story because of the emotion.
right.
Yeah, so that's
And,
what you're saying.
I remember I saw a comedian and his act was like he was like, I saw John Wick and it was a great movie, but this guy kills his dog and then he proceeds to kill like 3,000 people. And I thought that's a little excessive, but now I own a dog.
Yeah, and now he gets it.
Yeah.
Right? That's a great joke. That's honestly my wife. My wife would murder a million people to like protect a squirrel or protect a cat or protect our dog. And so if you're an animal person, if you got a pet, like, you get it. If you're not an
Right,
animal
right.
person, it's harder to understand.
Well, definitely, definitely. And I think, I mean, sometimes the story requires you to kill an animal, but when they just gratuitously do it to like try and tug at your heartstrings or whatever, I'm like, that fuckhead movie. I don't want to see that shit,
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
like I remember, and even when they do it, it feels like it wasn't necessary to make the story stronger. Like I don't know if you saw the Will Smith version of I Am Legend where they killed
oh
the
yeah.
dog. You know, first of all, the original book is awesome.
Yeah.
Like Richard Matheson is hard to like best him, but they keep trying to make that into a movie, and they keep ignoring the plot, and then like doing their Hollywood thing because Hollywood always thinks it's smarter. And but in that point, he has a dog, and the dog gets killed by like the vampire things, which wouldn't even really happen. But anyways, so the dog gets killed. I'm like, all right, now I really don't like this movie.
Yeah. I'm 100% behind you. Like if I know what they were trying to do and it didn't work, and then you're just like, and then you just feel bad for the dog, and then you just feel bad in general, and then you don't want to watch anymore.
Well, I remember like I think the thing that was like so well crafted but in the original story was I am legend as in I am the last human being on Earth.
Yep.
And then he dies. And so it's like I am legend. And then they change it so I'm legend, like I invented the cure. It's like, come on, dude.
Yeah. Had to give that storybook ending for
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Hollywood audience.
Which ruins it, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I'm a big believer in the story has to go where the story's going, happy or sad or otherwise. And that's and to circle back to Dexter, that's one of the reasons why the original series was such a disappointment for so many fans, is because it didn't really lead to where the story was actually feeling like it should have gone, right?
Right.
Dexter should have died in the original series. Everything was pointing that direction, but then something at the end was like, oh, well, maybe he survives. And because of the maybe we can do more Dexter series in case we want that money grab. And it's like, and then it just ruined the story.
Yeah, I think the strength was like kind of like with The Walking Dead. Like in the early episodes in the early season, they wanted to tell like a well-crafted story, and they're hoping to draw you in by how good the story was. And then after a while, it was like, all right, well, this is a moneymaker. We gotta keep this thing going. So we'll just come up with something new. And so the story went out the window, and it was just like, how do we continue the cycle? And it wasn't nearly as good.
Yeah, it's like, how many different ways can you kill zombies, and how many different ways can you show that the monsters are really people?
Well, I remember I saw an interview with Rick, the guy who plays Rick, in The Walking Dead. He's like, "Well, it's kind of like a family drama set in hell." I was like, "All right, you already, you already lost it because it's a zombie thing, That's why, like Dawn of the Dead, which is like the original Dawn of the Dead, was amazing. But it's like the whole thing is this story. It's a very nihilistic dystopia story, but it's a good story.
Yeah.
Even the remake, I thought was good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the thing. The story is there, and it's not just about the zombie killings or people trapped in a specific space. I mean, it is about so much more, and also the personal interaction. And you have like these tropes that it falls into at times because it needs to. Any story is a trope. Zombie stories have their tropes, romance stories have their tropes, comedies have their tropes, and it kind of tells the audience, all right, so this is familiar to you, and then because you feel comfortable in that familiar space, we can change it up just enough so it still fits in this box,
Yeah.
but not so far that you're like, oh, that's not
Well,
what I
I
expected.
like how the original Dawn of the Dead, like you're right, it has its tropes, but it brings in elements, but then it doesn't like, it doesn't like stay on them for so long that they become annoying. Like you have the racist cops, you have the like, some of the people in the biker gang are like horrible human beings,
Yeah.
but it's like, you have little glimpses. They don't just like squat on it and make you go, all right, man. I get what you're saying. Where's the fucking story? Yeah, no, I thought it was great. I thought it was a good approach. Going with your book, are you kind of like bringing in elements of World War II, like what people were thinking, what the environment was like, like you talked about like the motivation behind the serial killer. Um, But you want to go a little bit further into what was going on, like set up the
Yep.
scenario for me?
Absolutely. So I definitely dive into kind of the environment that she's living in and the group of people that we follow within the book are living in. So what do you have? You have kind of people on the verge of starvation, people trying to turn in neighbors and friends because whether they actually agree with the policy at the time or they're just jealous of something they want or they want
Which
extra
I'm sure
food.
happened. Yeah.
Oh, 100% it happened. I mean, all of these things create this particular environment of just vile nature where you never know who to trust, or if you can trust, you never know if you're going to starve the next day. You never know if you're just going to randomly get policed the next day. And a lot of it, especially concerning, was that this wasn't really the German occupation doing it. Like, obviously, there was the umbrella of that, but it was more the French police putting this structure on everybody because it's also what they think they need to do to appease the German government. So they're enforcing even stricter rules in this regime to try and demonstrate that they have a handle on it themselves so the Germans don't have to come and start policing it. Because the Germans thought Paris was basically, they used it as a vacation spot for German tourists, for soldiers. It's like anybody who was at the front that got some time off, it's like, go to Paris, have some fun. If they got all
No,
the
they did.
free, they got all the
I done a
chocolate.
little bit of research on that. My dad's a war historian, so
Oh, yeah.
so we talked about that. So, and I was gonna say one thing that sounds good is it sounds like you really did your research. Like
Oh,
you really looked into it. Like I did a story about World War I and the trenches and all that, and I put it out there for some beta readers, and you know the feedback you guys like. Well, we like the story, but there are letters in it. They don't sound like World War I letters. I was like, oh, that's good feedback. How would I know what World War I letters sound like? Oh well, why don't you look up some online? So I did. And I think that made the story way stronger. But yeah, I really think you need your research.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I dove deep. I dove deep. I was looking research online, interviewing people that had some grasp on it, whether they're there at some point or historians. I was directed to some really good. There's a French show called, I think it's called The French Village, that's all about Nazi occupation. So when the Nazis came into France, and it was, I think, late 90s, early 2000s, maybe, but I could be completely off because it might have been mid 2000s. But it was a bunch of seasons, but from the French perspective. So that was super helpful. And
What
then
was it
diving into
called?
the library, the French Village. So I think it's
Okay,
on Hulu, but you could probably find it online. But it's all dubbed or not dubbed. It's all captioned. So
right.
got to do a lot of reading, but worth it. I mean, it was really a great insight into things that happened with the needed dramatization for TV, but at the same time, pretty accurate into the feeling and emotionality and the way that people were acting. Like without research, it would not feel true. It would not feel immersive. And then I
Or
also
have
think
the
at the
same
time,
impact. Yeah.
exactly, right? It all makes impact. And I learned there was an actual serial killer in Paris at that time. It was a guy.
Yeah, I've
But
actually I've actually heard that. So, but yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I really like that you did your research, and like I've been to author conventions and I'll do panels. And I remember I was in one panel, and I always ask people some iteration of the research question. And I remember there's a couple of guys who were like, "Yeah, I never do research." It's like, well, okay, I will never read your book.
yeah, that's surprising to me. And also, I think a little lazy.
I think it is lazy. And the thing is, like, even if you do research, like, right now, like, I'm reading a sequel to one of my books, and in it, there's like a much smaller local force fighting like an overwhelming army. So it's like, I'm gonna look up how guerrilla groups fight larger enemies.
Yeah.
So, I got some books. I was watching YouTube videos. So I was like, because I wanted to approach this right. Because like the worst thing is when you put something up there and then an expert in the field calls out and goes, yeah, that's bullshit.
Right. I went down this deep rabbit hole of like, even to the way of, oh man, were they using zippers or was it like more common to use button up flies or
No, but see, that's good. That's
yeah.
really good. Yeah.
Because you just don't know, and you exactly what to your point. You don't want somebody calling out like, "Oh, that's not the right gun. They wouldn't use that gun." Yeah,
And I don't know about you, but it's like I remember like I do a lot of paintings and drawings and stuff, or like, for bands and authors and stuff like that. If I see a painting, no matter how well done it is, if there's like one little tick that's wrong with like the anatomy or the light source, that kind of ruins the whole thing for me. So it's kind of the same thing with books. If I'm reading it and there's like one little like section where I'm like, that's way off, then it kind of ruins the whole thing for me. Like the
Yeah.
suspension of disbelief is destroyed.
Oh yeah, completely. And I think that's why research is so important. And I mean, even to the point that little things I think make a big impact, and not even necessarily that someone's going to call out for bullshit or not, but something that people wouldn't know. For example, in my book, Girl in the Ashes, there's a moment where I have somebody thinking about what happened in the last time Paris was under siege. So, which was in the late 19th century. And
Okay.
it was under siege, and so there was a chef who got animals from the zoo and like made food out of like elephants and things from the zoo because everybody was starving, but it was still supposed to be aristocrat.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's so interesting. If I put that in there, it's something that I think people would be really,
Well,
I don't want to say
I
inspired
know,
by.
just going off on a tangent, I know like with escargot, it's because people were super poor. So like we will make something out of this. And then it turns into this like, oh yes, French escargot is so like exotic. It's like, yeah, but look where it came from.
Dude, all the best food. Like if you think about French
Like
food,
jambalaya, yeah.
yeah, it all comes from poor people having to try and make something crappy good.
Right.
And it's delicious.
And they often blow away the people that are like the much fancier, like, yeah, we cooked the steak just right. It's like, yeah, but have you tried this? This is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about filet mignon, is it delicious? Sure. But it's incredibly lean. There's no fat to it. So if you don't cook it right, it goes dry and it goes bland really quickly. Where all the other things like offal, which I love, liver or kidney or these things, but you have to cook it for so long and you have to add all these things and it makes it so rich and delicious. It's where the flavor's at, but it's always, the cheapy ingredients that anybody should be able to afford. Not that, I mean, honestly, kidney's so hard to find that it's probably expensive in the States.
Well, I was there's the last thing I want to say because I don't want to focus back on yourself. But I always find the best food, not always, but like the majority of the time, the best food is in food cars. Like
Oh,
like I was in Austin, Texas, and there was a guy from Mexico making tacos. He'd hand make them. They were fairly cheap. They were the best tacos I've ever had in my life.
yeah, I can't agree with you more. I mean, there's a guy who's doing I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised in Los Angeles, and all around you're gonna find the taco carts just somewhere on a corner. And one guy in like East LA is doing like bone marrow tacos. And I'm a huge fan of bone marrow, but it's a pain in the ass. Like if you ever made it's a long, drawn out process. And this guy's doing it, on just that fry table right in front of you.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was in. I lived in Austin for a while, and we had a guy. He had like a food cart with a fried table, and you just cook it up right in front of you.
yeah. And I agree with you. Those are my favorite. They pop up everywhere in Los Angeles. They're everywhere now. It's like one time there was a taco guy, and then by the next time I drove by on this block, it was like a crepe guy next to him, and then it was like a whole just series. Like okay, so I'll have my appetizer, my entree, and my dessert all right here.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that really is like people are like it's weird because like I've lived everywhere because one I'm military, so we move all the time, so I'm just kind of used to it. So I get kind of antsy if I stay in one place for too long. The other is I'm a tattoo artist, so I've been like all over Europe and everything. And it's weird when you talk to people. This only happens in the U.S. I've noticed, and like I'll be in I was in Philly for a while, and I talk to people like I've never left Philly. I was like you like they didn't even like go anywhere in PA, much less leave PA. It's
Yeah.
like I've never left Philly. It's like what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But
It makes a difference when that idea of how you experience things, how you look at things. I had a friend. I lived in Europe for a while. I lived in Europe from when I was 20 to 21, and then with my wife when we got married, we moved back for a little while. But I had a friend when I first moved there.
is your wife from Europe?
No, no, she was doing a program, so she was like, "Oh," and she always wanted to go and live there. So I was like, "Let's do it. We'll figure it out." So we
Okay.
went for a little less than a year, And but I had a friend the first time I moved, and she was so dead set on getting a tattoo when we were living there. And she's like, "Oh, they have the best tattoo artists. They have all this and all that."
Which, by the way, is not true.
Well,
But
yeah,
yeah,
that
go
was, well,
ahead.
this is the part of the story, right? Is we meet a guy, become really good friends with him, had these amazing tattoos as a bartender at this bar we always went to. And finally, she got the courage. She's like, Alessia, where did you get your tattoos? I love it. Like, especially this one on your neck. It's amazing. Where'd you get it? And he looks at me and he says, San Francisco.
Yeah, no, there are some great artists in California. I'll just like a quick tangent on tattoos. I've had people that will email me and they're like, can I pay you to draw something up for me and I'll get it in Europe? And I'm like, but one, no, I don't do that. But I was like, why do you think why do you want it done in Europe? They're like, oh, the colors are brighter. I'm like, that's called Photoshop. They have the exact same colors we do. So, but I mean, there are talented people there. Like, we make the joke, anybody with a first name Dimitri is awesome. Because I know like three Dimitris, like Dimitri Samoan, Dimitri Vision, and I forget the other one's name, but they're all awesome. You know,
Yeah.
but it's like it's not as common in Europe, so it's more like, okay, this country has one good guy. Then you go to another country and they have another excellent guy. You know, whereas in the US, it's like, okay, we have five in this city.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, honestly, if what my opinion is if you're gonna get a tattoo, you should do your research. And if you do your research, you're gonna find the guy that you want, or girl. You're gonna find who you want to do it.
Right, right. No, I agree. I think it's ridiculous when people are like, yeah, man, you know, I just got this done. I'm not happy. I'm like, did you talk to them or look at their work or anything? It's like, no, I just trusted them. It's like you can't do that with anything. Why would you do that with something permanent on your body? But let's get away from tattoos. You know, we're talking about I could talk about tattoos all day. I own a shop, you know. But
Yeah.
let's get back to you for a minute. So, you know, the book you have out now, do you have other books as well?
Yeah, this is actually my ninth book. So
Oh,
the book
wow.
I published previously before this was called Life Between Seconds, and that's about a 25-year-old guy from the States and a 74-year-old Argentinian woman, and they kind of create this friendship over their past traumas. But then when the ghosts of their past start haunting them again, they have to decide whether they're going to let their friendship sustain them or they're going to continue on that trajectory of loneliness. And it was a really cool experience because I, from that story, it was me traveling around. I've just traveled around a lot. I'm a travel writer, and it really brought up all these new stories, these new experiences. When I was in Buenos Aires, I saw and met with the Madres de la Plaza de Mayo, who were these women committed to learning what happened to their brothers, their sisters, their parents, their children during the dirty war in Argentina. And so they would walk in silence once a week around the presidential plaza holding signs, holding pictures, demanding information. And they still haven't got it. This was in the late 1970s to mid 1980s, and they still haven't gotten all the understanding and all the information about what
Oh,
happened.
that sounds awesome as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like I've traveled all over. I think you're really missing out if you don't. Like I traveled to Peru and saw Machu Picchu, and you know, I went to Mexico. I saw like three different sites with the Mayan ruins. Like I said, you need that experience. It really helps.
Yeah. It opens up your eyes in different ways. You know, it's
Yeah.
cultural. Me, I'm a foodie. So food things, as we talked about earlier. I mean, just the different, but also
Have you
understanding.
been to Peru?
Oh, yeah. I loved Peru. I spent, how long did I spend there? So I went, this was in 2011. I flew into Colombia, traveled around Colombia, and then took a boat down the Rio
Oh,
Negro
my late wife has told me.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, it was Colombia was super cool, but my I didn't know anything about Ecuador, so I was like, I'm just gonna skip Ecuador, and I took a boat in the Amazon down to Peru, and then I did Machu Picchu, did Lima, did Nazca lines, and it was all the way down to Titicaca, and then into Chile.
I went to Machu Picchu and like I spent a whole day exploring it. I was like, I need more than a day. You
Yeah.
know, so I want to go back because I want to see. I didn't see Winnie Picchu. I just saw Machu Picchu, but
Oh yeah.
I remember although like all the security guards or whatever there, they all thought I was a rock star. I was like, dude, I'm not a rock star, but they're like taking pictures with me and stuff. It was pretty funny.
Having you sign things.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, they didn't have me sign anything, but like like they had me like on the shoulder, like putting up hand signs or whatever. They all thought it was cool. And the funny thing is because I have a lot of tattoos, and I'll tell people I'm not a rock star, they don't believe me. They think I'm
No.
lying to them.
No, you're totally Travis Barker.
Yeah. Well, when I first moved to New York, I kind of looked like Eminem, and so people would get mad at me that I wouldn't sign something. Like, you're really Eminem, and you're just being a douchebag. It's like, dude, I'm not fucking Eminem.
Good. Now he's got like this hate group on Facebook, all because you wouldn't sign something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, possible. I'm sure there's plenty of stories about every celebrity. But all right, man. So, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Do you have a website?
Yeah, I got a website, just my name, douglasweissman.com. I'm also really active on Instagram, really active on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm not active, but I'm there. If you give me a shout out, I'll see it. But it's pretty easily accessed.
Okay. I found just a side note, I found LinkedIn, like I put stuff out there, it does seem as responsive as like Facebook or Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, depends on what you're trying to get at. I'm up there. That's where I just do my daily thing. So I see things that are on there every day. But honestly, it's a weird space, LinkedIn.
Right.
But I like it because it's a place that I've carved out where I know how to find people that are like talking about writing and things. So that's where I connect. But especially after Twitter kind of tanked, so many people just flooded over to LinkedIn, and now it is really hard to find the original stuff
Oh,
that you.
really? Yeah.
Yeah.
What, because Elon Musk took over and became X?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much once yeah. I mean, it's just like, well, I don't know, the social media space. I have no idea what goes on there. I just poke my
Things
head in.
change all the time, yeah. Like I'm all about free speech, but then like all of a sudden with X, they're like, we charge you for this and we do this. I was like, and they're talking about like a dating app on it. So things got weird. Yeah.
Things got weird. I mean, that's just the thing. I don't. It's like social media kind of poke my head out like a gopher every once in a while. Take a look around and think, I have no idea what's going on.
Back in the hole. Back in the hole. You're like, fuck this. Yeah.
Pretty
But
much.
all right. So just to tie this up, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So again, reach out to me on Instagram, reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you go to my website, you can always fill out a contact sheet. It goes directly to my inbox. Otherwise, I'll see it if you leave a review of my books on Amazon or Goodreads. I'll definitely see it. And I will
Reviews help.
respond.
Everyone needs to leave reviews.
Yeah. So check out Girl in the Ashes if you're interested in a serial killer in World War II Paris. Or you could check out my other books, especially Life Between Seconds, if you're interested in Madres de la Plaza de Mayo or magical realism. So it kind of covers all the
Are
stuff.
you into Graham Hancock or any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Why would you not be? Yeah, I'm a big fan of Graham Hancock and all the exploration he does. But all right, man. So I don't want to keep you here all night, all day, or whatever.
I got time. My daughter's in school for another couple hours.
But do you have anything else you want to add, like something people should look at?
Honestly, not really, but I'll say if you're writing historical fiction, definitely do your research.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. People will call you out and then that will tank and then nobody will trust anything you say.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Honestly, that's it. I find that if you throw out kind of, I don't want to say, that expository, like, I'm going to give you all the information immediately, because it's just like, what was the guy? I was reading a Robert Ludlum novel, right? Kind of American espionage, CIA stuff a lot of it takes place from like the 50s. He's the guy who wrote the Bourne Ultimatum, the Bourne
Oh,
novels.
okay. All right.
Yeah. But there's this one moment in one of the books where he tries so hard to explain this one radio and how it works. And then there's like one sentence on the radio. And that's when you're like, oh, he's just trying to flex here to make it sound like he's done his research, which he has, to demonstrate to the reader, you can trust me.
But
But
it
at the
takes
same
away
time,
from the story. Yeah.
yeah, he overcompensated, right? So
Right.
and then you have the other end where you don't do your research at all and you just make it up. You're like, this guy's obviously just making shit up, right? So you find the happy medium.
Yeah, well, my dad is like big into guns. Like he has the FFL. He like he goes hunting every weekend. And one thing that would always bug him is like the Hollywood depiction of guns. Because like for instance, people like they shoot like this. You will break your wrist if you shoot like that. You
Yeah,
can't shoot like that. And
kickback is
people
weird.
forget how loud guns are. Like they just fire like this and they're fine. You would go deaf. You know,
Yeah.
and then like it would be like a 6-shot revolver, and they're like firing 15 rounds. Yeah, so do your research because you look like a fool otherwise.
Yeah, I
And
mean, even going back to John Wick, right? John Wick, if you watch John Wick, especially the first one, you will notice every time he shoots somebody, first, three in the chest, one in the head. He always makes sure that he
and he
doesn't.
got he got experts. He brought in MMA guys. He brought
Yeah,
in like marksmen. So he really is research. I respect that.
yeah, exactly.
But all right, man. So everyone should go to his website. They should check out his books. They should buy his shit on Amazon. Hopefully Netflix will come calling.
That's the
Dump
idea.
a
Yeah.
bunch of fucking money his way.
That'd be good.
But
If anybody knows anybody, let's get this going. Female serial killer, World War II. It's got a checks a lot of boxes.
right, no, and I love that you did your research and that you there's like that. There's a little itineration. They make the story. They make the story so much stronger. Just a little elements that you put in there. But yeah, man. So thank you for being on this. I appreciate it. You have anything else you want to throw out there to the void?
No, I mean, I could scream into the void all day, so I won't keep you here.